Hey guys, EST here. Why are my shoes glowing? Well, let me introduce you to a neat little device I just picked up. It is a ultraviolet shoe sanitizer, and that is a 10 volt 3 watt coil style non-LED bulb, so kind of old school. So they've got this nice little plastic protective cage around it and some warning stickers and this little remote where you turn it on. And when you do turn it on, you get a 1 minute delay to get to safety and put it somewhere out of eye vision or where the UV will bother anything else. And then you got, I think, a 15 or 30 minute cycle, it said. And then your shoes are sanitized at least to the point where anything the light can come in contact with. So nothing in the fabric, nothing too deep, nothing under the sole. But it's usually good enough to eliminate any kind of water damage, I guess you would say, as far as pathogens. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but a long time ago I got these shoes super wet after having to be out on a work site in a rainstorm for like 4 hours. They were just absolutely drenched, and the next day they smelled terrible. Nothing I could do. I hit it with like pure alcohol, just absolutely soaked them down to the core in rubbing alcohol. It helped for a little bit, but it just didn't quite do it. These things brought them back to life right here. That combined with heating them up pretty good, but as you can see, I melted the soles a little bit there. And those aren't even gel inserts. Those are the ones that came with the shoes. So the product is pretty pricey, unfortunately. It's from Shoes App, which, you know, petty fix. Okay, cool. You go to their website. They're pretty professional. They're probably still imported by China, but, you know, they're all right. Runs about $45 used on up to like 100 plus retail, brand new. And then the bulbs, if they burn out, are kind of pricey too. But it's got some good information on here. Now, you're supposed to put it in a lightproof bag, which, I mean, I'm not using right now because nothing in this area around it is going to be affected by UV, and I'm not going to look directly at it. I don't have any pets. It's pretty safe. It's got some pretty professional packaging, too, with the easy instructions let you know, hey, when you hit the button and it does nothing, wait 60 seconds. That's kind of how it works. So pretty neat, but at 3 watts, don't you kind of wish it didn't plug into my wall? I mean, it could be battery powered. Last thing I need in my life is one more battery. However, it would be a lot easier if there's a power outage to run these off of a battery because it's only 6 watts plus a little tiny bit of overhead. So getting out a battery pack and an inverter just to plug in the plug to power these, pretty stupid. Now, those certainly have some other uses, but is there another way to sanitize shoes? Because getting them wet in a survival scenario is going to be foot discomfort for the next couple of months. Let's put it that way. Your shoes are basically destroyed, and you'll be lucky if you didn't pick up some kind of fungal infection, and then you better have something to treat it. But what about a chemical solution? Like I said, you can get them pretty hot, but a lot of shoes will get damaged above about 130, 145, and that's right where you want to be to kill everything. You want to go up to about 165. So you're going to start having problems. You're going to degrade the materials. What about at the bowling alley? They have that chemical treatment. What is that? It's obviously not bleach or alcohol. Can't be peroxide because, you know, these would definitely not still be this color. Although I think those are like leather or fake leather. I picked up this Purify Pro. This is the cheapest one I could find. 2 bottles for quite a lot. eBay, it wasn't great, and people, it looked like they were reselling them secondhand. This acid in here breaks down after a couple of years, and especially if not stored correctly, so you really don't want to get it secondhand. I resorted to getting this from Amazon, and I think I've only made about 5 purchases on Amazon in the last, 15 years, because I don't like them. They're a terrible business and a terrible company. But if you read the ingredients, this does contain hypochlorous acid at a density of about 0.01%, or 0.02 if you're round. So I didn't get the aerosolized one because, you know, indoor air pollution, but you can just spray it. And that'll kill anything on the surface and soak in a little bit. Really, really good. And trust me, this acid kills everything. However, it is safe for light topical use. So if you needed to directly treat your feet, you could use it for the same thing. The only problem is, good luck producing that yourself, and if you run out, then you don't have it anymore. Whereas you would have nearly unlimited electricity with just like a basic battery and solar system until, you know, that breaks. But boy, you'd get some years out of that. So those are the 2 ways that I saw that, and a hairdryer tends to get to about 145. So you can get some mileage out of that, get these pretty hot, a lot easier than like throwing them in the oven or something. So that's about it for shoes, but UV sanitizing technology. Can you use these, especially for their immense cost, to sanitize something else? And the answer is absolutely yes. But can you get it done cheaper? Now, as I alluded to before, let's just step outside the whole world of shoes for a second. I just realized what an amazing pun that accidentally was. All the preppers in 2018 thought biological. I'd rather live in the real world. I'll just go hide in the woods if there's a big pandemic. Well, obviously, society and the economies will collapse. But like PPE and like alcohol and iodine, I don't need that. I need shelter and food and water. And self-defense, because humans are the real danger. And then we all still had to pay taxes and go to work, well, depending upon where you lived. The only thing that was going to go global was something with a ridiculously long incubation period, or passive carriers. Sort of the same thing, but like tuberculosis is still around because of truly passive carriers, look it up. And one that didn't have insanely high lethality, or we would have just absolutely turtled up. So it always had to be something like that. We're not going to get another Black Plague unless it's novel to the point of like not even being a bacteria or virus. It would have to be like a fungal thing, which is almost impossible to stop by our immune system. It just comes down to the size of the cells and the size of the organism. And that's why everybody 500 years ago had parasites. And I just want to hit on that because I never made like a COVID follow-up video, but that's like the 45-second version of it. However, population growth and any kind of massive economic downturn or resource shortages or mass movement of humans. So all of those can go together. You can have pieces of it. You can have all of it. But that is going to cause another pandemic. How severe, where, and do the most developed nations have something to mitigate it? Those are the questions. But everybody got so like middle school health class failure level stupid when it came to COVID. And it was like, it wasn't something people even thought to research because they thought they already knew. Oh, if you don't want germs on your fingers, then put on gloves and go to the grocery store. Simple. Oh, I can't breathe in germs if I put on a mask that I can breathe through the edges of and isn't a filtered mask. And they don't really know how water droplets work. It should have been wicking cotton masks, not medical dental style anti-splash masks. But even the governments didn't seem to know that. Now, they knew that. I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but you know. But then people in the grocery store would pull out their phone with their magical shielding gloves and magic anti-germ gloves, and then touch the surface of their phone, look up their shopping list, reply to some texts, and then put it back in their pocket after touching absolutely everything in the grocery store. Every surface that everybody else breathed and coughed on. And then go home and touch it later without sanitizing it. Gloves protect you from pathogens about as well as your own skin. If you don't have an open wound on your hand, you don't really need gloves. And I mean open, like bleeding, like bloodstream access. So it's just mind-blowing how stupid people were being. So we're just going to have to, this is not an option, we have to work anti-pathogen measures into our preps. Now people get way too simplistic with this, and they're usually just wrong. Now, what did people do before we had all kinds of treatments and this and that and this chemical that does this and this surface protective thing and the antifungal stuff? I mean, you get athlete's foot, there's like 4 or 5 different over-the-counter medicines you could use for it. Well, what did people do before that? Well, I mean, you go back to like the 500 years plus, people just died all the time from illnesses and infections, and they took drastic measures like amputations. And I mean, okay, like 1700s, 1800s early, America, the average mortality rate of just like, would a kid live from birth to 18? It was under 50% chance, I believe. More than 50% of the kids that you had in your family, for some reason, somehow would die from either accidents around the farm or infections or illness or dying during childbirth or just whatever. So just focus for a second on what a living hell that would be to live in, but there was just nothing else. They knew nothing else. They just knew life would be suffering and it would just be awful. And please do appreciate how we have it now. Now, however, okay, what do we got now? Okay, I have a bacterial infection. Instead of chopping off my finger, my foot, my whatever, dying from it, from sepsis, I could just go take an antibiotic. So, okay, I've had him as a sponsor on the channel before. Not going to name him, so I don't have to mark it as an ad, but you can go get, $300 to $500, maybe more, of a prescription kit, just the full suite of every single antibiotic that you can pretty much get. But even within that, well, if you have a skin infection, take this one. And if you have like a gut infection, take this one. And if you have this type of infection, then this one. And if you're this gender, then you need to take this one. And they're all different, very, very little effectiveness, a lot of antibiotic resistant strains out there, and then the side effects of them killing bacteria you actually need. And it's just like this whole thing. And that's 100 plus years of recent science that all went into something that barely works. Well, you're not going to make an antibiotic pill at home or like an antifungal cream. You need a whole lab to do that usually. So what did people do that we might be able to replicate? What kills everything? If you reduce it to mostly everything, the answer is high temperatures, oxygen, lack of oxygen, acids, sunlight, hydrogen peroxide, iodine compounds, various alcohol molecules, rubbing alcohol being the best really, and various salts. I don't think I missed anything on the list, but instead of making like a 1 hour documentary on this, I'm probably just going to feature each one about like, here's like a $3 bottle of hydrogen peroxide, and here's how you need to store it, how long it's good for, and what it's used for, when you would use it, how you would safely use it. And so I'm starting with ultraviolet light because I just picked up the ultraviolet light shoe sanitizers to fix a problem with my shoes. But they did a study with those little ultraviolet light cleaners that came real popular in the last 5 years. I wonder why. It would clean your cell phone. It's allegedly UV LEDs, and people thought, oh, for $20, it's a UV sanitizer. That stuff is medical grade and costs $1,000. What? So various tests, look it up on YouTube. Long story short, they do work. They reduce the viral count or pathogen count of any kind by about 90%. 90% isn't very good, but remember, viral load, okay? Inoculation dose versus infection dose. As soon as it goes up your nose, in your eyes, or whatever you carelessly touched, or breathed in and out in your lungs, okay, I'll be fair. Well, the viruses have to go from 1 million to 2 million to 4 million to 8 million. I mean, they don't actually split. That's a terrible example. They tend to infect your cells and then go from 1 to 100. But you get the idea. They have to replicate, and the whole time the cell death is signaling your immune system to come investigate, and if it doesn't like the surface proteins, it's going to nuke it. There, it has summed up your entire 12 years of primary school. Now, don't you feel dumb doing all that homework? So if you can reduce the number of COVID viral cells on the surface of your cell phone by 90%, that might be enough. Now, you hit it with certain other cleaning chemicals, it's going to be 99.999%. But have you tried making your own isopropyl alcohol at home? I looked into it and immediately gave up. Now, I don't want to rub salt all over my screen because that'll scratch it up. I can't probably get my screen up to 300 degrees. I can't drop it into boiling water. So even though it's sensitive electronics, let's bombard it with ultraviolet light once a week or when we know it was exposed to something. So you could just leave it sitting out in sunlight, but that can actually damage the screen, except they fixed that problem. So that's what it comes down to. Is ultraviolet light or sunlight going to destroy my whatever? And the answer is eventually yes. However, I happen to know, there's polarized screens. They know that people use them outside. They know that there's windows at cell phone stores. They took reasonable measures to UV proof the average smartphone. Now, that said, would I throw it in every single day for 4 years? No, I would not do that. It will eventually get through something or destroy something. But would it be an interesting tool? You now have a little mini ultraviolet oven for $20 to $30. That is interesting. What I would do is just aluminum foil or Mylar, something you know is pretty tough. Build your own little box or bag or something. Yes, us in Wisconsin say bag, not bag. There's a comment every time, I swear. Anyway, get one little LED bulb that runs on, a couple watts and just hook a power source, a battery to it, whatever, USB, whatever you want to do, whatever contraption, whatever basic DC wiring, and then just bombard the whole chamber and everything in it is sanitized. Everything that can be reached by the light. You could get that done for $20. I think that anybody who calls themselves a prepper should probably have a couple UV LED fixtures of various types, wire it up and preferably get a DC one so you don't have to mess around with inversion in AC because it just drops it right back down to DC inside the bulb housing and then puts off heat. And just build your own little UV box. I mean, just look up how to build your own UV sanitation box on YouTube. There are, without me even looking, probably 100 guides. There you go. I just typed in DIY UV sanitizer box, and the first one looks exactly like how I would do it. Oh, wow, somebody did it in a suitcase. That's clever, actually. I wouldn't have thought of that. So, why reinvent the wheel? So, go watch those. I mean, it's just a fun project. It's really easy, it's really cheap, and it's with materials you already have. Or just buy like a broad UV sanitizer. I mean, those can get a little more expensive and they're pretty intense. And they draw a lot of wattage and they tend to not be battery powered. But, go look what's out there. It's just, you just need a light emitting device and then just a bouncy chamber of either dark black to absorb it or some kind of reflective material to reflect it around. Now, here's the limitation. This is why people don't like this. If I had a glass jar that I was storing something in, like a mason jar, pickle jar, whatever, I was storing food in it, and then I accidentally left it out, or it was mostly empty. There's like some kind of strawberry jelly in it, and it was mostly empty. We kind of rinsed it, and then oops, I left it out. And now there's mold or bacteria, something smells, whatever. And I drop a ridiculous, like medical grade UV bulb into it, cover it in a black bag, and leave it overnight. Whatever mold was growing on there ain't growing there anymore, but you didn't penetrate deep enough into the material, probably. Bad example, strawberry jelly is kind of transparent, but it could grow back. You'd still have to physically wash it. Well, why don't you just throw the whole thing into a boiling pot of water? I mean, that's so much simpler and so much more effective and faster. So I'm not saying UV is the way to do it, because if it was the way to do it, we'd all be doing it that way. But then again, you look at like bleach and hydrogen peroxide, ammonia, or ammonia-based or bleach-based stuff, any kind of like alkaline cleaner. The more exotic like coating protection, like antipathogen stuff like Microban, I think it's called. We just have that and can make it. We can make it in bulk, so we just do that instead. It doesn't mean it's better. It just means it's cheaper and safer. So hopefully I changed your mind on not having like a UV blaster device or box of some sort. I would maybe get the shoe specific one if it was within my budget, which it was, and then just use that for everything else. And I might buy some spare bulbs for it too. But I think, one is none and two is one because stuff breaks. I would go to the hardware store, buy just some wire lead blank socket light bulbs, or light bulb sockets, pardon me. You could buy them for about $1 or $2. And then make sure the size, the threading, all that matches the type of bulb that you're going to get, almost definitely online. And make sure it runs on DC, preferably USB, because that's just like so much easier. If your whole life is going to run off of like big battery packs and stuff, like lithium, battery cells, you're going to want DC. You do not want to go to AC because, like I said, it will just drop it right back to DC within the bulb's base, and then it'll get really hot. Complete overcomplication and waste of electricity. So direct current or USB powered UV sanitizers, a lot of them are fake. Try to find one that people actually tested, and there's tons and tons and tons of videos of people testing, cheap Chinese whatever on YouTube. Find one that's pretty vetted, find one that looks identical, the same brand name, not that Chinese electronics really do brand names, and then pick up a couple of them as soon as your budget for more prepper stuff is rolling around. You honestly don't even have to wire it up or use it yet, you can just kind of have it. And if there was some just horrific outbreak and then somebody in your house had it, isolate them. And then if there's a room that they were in or just some way you can get them outside for a second or whatever, just unscrew the light bulb that's in there, screw in the UV one, which then in that case would be alternating current, obviously, because that's what your house runs off of. And then just blast the whole room with UV. Make sure a human isn't sitting in there. Make sure there's nothing terrifically UV sensitive, but 10 minutes of UV is from like a blaster bulb is probably, I'd say, less than like a day to a week of sunlight, and there's not much that'll die after being out in the sun for 12 hours or something. So you're usually pretty safe. It's just if you were to bombard certain materials like rubbers over and over and over and over and over with UV for like a year, they're going to start to degrade. A lot of plastics do that. A lot of inks, obviously, non-pigmented inks, they'll fade in sunlight. I know, shocking. But like that could disinfect your whole house quicker than like an entire bottle of cleaning material. But only the surfaces that can be hit by the light. That is the limitation. So I like it for small scale stuff. I think the perfect thing would be, okay, there's some horrible like Ebola level you are going to 100% die pathogen, and you think somebody touched it and then touched like your survival knife. Okay, put the knife in some little tiny UV chamber, blast it for 30 minutes and you're good. Just switch it on, use a minimal amount of electricity, and you're fine. It's better than trying to leave it completely outside unprotected. It's faster, it's more direct, it's simple. No animals carrying it away, no getting rained on, you just can't count on sunlight. And think about it, like, especially a black painted knife blade, you're looking at like a flat, nice, non-porous surface, nothing complex, no caves inside of it, no little nooks and crannies to an extent. And I mean, would I just hold the lighter up to the knife, get it up to about 200 plus degrees, 300 degrees for a little bit, and then let it cool down? That would be a faster, more direct way to do it, and every pathogen anywhere on that thing is dead. However, that's not very good for the steel. So it's hard to say, like, no, replace every possible sanitization method in your entire life with UV, but it has its places, and it has very specific uses. A lot of fabrics are really just anything that's simplistic, flat, small. It's just this nice little thing to have. So it wouldn't be the first thing I go out and buy, but like I said, it's just kind of this thing you should know about. So in the very near future, we're going to probably talk about alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and iodine for sure. Like, when do you use it for first aid? What does it all kill? Will it kill viruses, bacteria, and fungi? Are there any side effects? Which one allows the wound to heal the fastest? That's the interesting one. Because no matter what you think you know about it, you're wrong. Like, today in 2025, people are treating wounds incorrectly. It is astonishing. But if you want to hear all about like little 30-second breakdowns of how alcohol molecules denature the surface proteins of every living thing and why that's a commonality between these two pathogens, but not this one, but then still this one, it causes osmosis, and then just go back to like, here's some practical actual steps that you need to actually know because science is boring and nobody cares, then you're on the right channel for sure, and you're going to see that in the near future. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys shortly.